Story 1. A person with the lowest security clearance knows it is classified. In fact, individuals without any security clearance are aware that it is classified. Story 2. I just saw a Republican commentator say, "Well, we can't forget what Hillary did. Yes, 10 years ago she was accused of using an unsecured server, and you haven't stopped talking about it since." Story 3. Tulsi is firing 100 people for inappropriate discussions, even if they did not directly participate. This is the standard we want to see applied. However, we know that some conservatives tolerate abuse of power as long as it involves their lawmakers. This highlights the hypocrisy and dishonesty of many Republicans. Note to younger individuals unfamiliar with the phrase locker room talk. It refers to a controversial comment made by a public figure, which embodies a disrespectful attitude towards individuals. Story 4. Imagine still pretending to care about accountability when it is this obvious. The mental gymnastics deserve an Olympic medal. Story 5. The situation is similar to the fallout from Elon Musk's email server or Donald Trump keeping classified documents in the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. Nothing significant has changed. These individuals do not genuinely care about security. It is all a performance aimed at targeting those they consider enemies. Story 6. What she did was unacceptable and should have disqualified her from running at the very least. I may have liberal views, but what happened was significant, and anyone else would likely have faced imprisonment for it. The chat on Signal is far worse. Not only did it leak, but it was also on Signal. The chat was intentionally set to delete after 4 weeks. This is a serious issue. Those records are meant to be preserved in case of an investigation and declassified after a specified period. Intentionally destroying records is a crime. This comment effectively outlines just how many serious laws were broken, including mishandling of national defense information, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, violation of operational security regulations, violation of the Presidential Records Act, violation of the Federal Records Act, breach of executive orders on classified information, violation of the Logan Act, less likely but notable. Story 7, Republican here. A full bipartisan commission needs to conduct a thorough investigation, including a complete audit of the technology and the history of the Signal Group, as well as determining who invited the reporter into the group. Once all the facts are known and published, appropriate punishments can be determined. Story 8. After extensive investigation, it has been determined that Hegseth is neither a Democrat nor a woman, so the two scenarios are completely different. Story 9. I'm not sure when people will understand that hypocrisy and clever tactics please the Republican base. The entire point of Donald Trump as a figurehead is the absence of accountability. He is a wealthy white man. Republican voters want individuals like him to be unaccountable and above the law. It's not a flaw, it's an intention. Anytime you ask Republican voters questions like this, it only increases their enthusiasm for him. Story 10. Trump took classified documents when he left the White House and defied a subpoena to return them. Anyone who could ignore that and still support Trump won't care about this. Story 11. Everyone on the left always assumed the emphasis in that sentence was emails. But we learned last year that it was always really her. The fallout from the Signal scandal will be the same as every other scandal in this administration. The press will move on in another day or so. The Democrats will pretend to be angry, but then continue to be led by Chuck Schumer and the rest of the institutionalists who are afraid of their shadows, and the Republicans will fall in line. Susan Collins will probably issue a statement about how concerned she is before, once again, falling in line. Story 12. Assuming you actually want an answer, Reddit communities like r/AskPolitics or /AskConservatives would probably be more useful, as they have rules requiring top-level comments to be real answers from the solicited demographic. Story 13. That crowd does not care about any of this because they do not understand it. As long as they feel that they are owning the opposition, they will not care. When it does finally sink in, as it has for some Republican voters, they will still say things like, "There are bad people on both sides," as if that can even be equated. Story 14. They were both accustomed to circumventing standard operating procedures and should both be punished. There was no evidence that Hillary had classified data on the server, but it was still wrong. There is evidence of classified data on the Signals app, and they should be prosecuted to the same extent as Manning and Winter. Just because Hillary wasn't punished doesn't give Waltz or Hegseth a pass. Story 15. After the 2016 election, didn't it emerge that Donald's cabinet was using personal servers? So much has happened, it's hard to keep track. Story 16. Immediate termination and being found unfit to hold any level of political office is unacceptable. As a Republican, I believe that such incompetence and complacency cannot be tolerated. Story 17. The private email server situation was dangerous and foolish. Posed a security risk. This incident should be considered a serious problem. Discussions occurred regarding matters that should remain confidential. It was an astonishing display of poor judgment. If anyone else had done this, they would face consequences. In summary, both incidents demonstrate that the individuals we elect cannot be trusted to make sound decisions regarding security. Story 18. I often lamented the fact that Hillary Clinton faced no consequences for her actions, and to this day, I think it is an absolute tragedy that she got away with it. I cannot change the past, so I cannot say that this would have turned out any differently had she, Joe Biden, or Donald Trump faced consequences when they mishandled classified information. With the precedent that has been set, essentially that it is no big deal when my team does it, but the world is ending when the other team does it, I fully expect there to be no consequences. In my view, at a minimum, everyone involved needs significant retraining on how to handle classified information and appropriate usage of unsecured communication channels. I would like to see some individuals, especially Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe, and Pete Hegseth, held accountable as the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and the Secretary of Defense should have absolutely known that this was unacceptable and put a stop to it immediately. Additionally, Hegseth should likely face criminal charges for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. Story 19. What is the point of these posts? The people you are asking are not here. They are not going to answer you. Story 20. Top comment on the post about it in the conservative forum. At least we now know Signal is safe to use since leadership trusts it. Story 21. I just don't understand why people can't acknowledge that both the emails and the texts are problematic and dangerous, and that they indicate we have incompetent leaders. Story 22. That group believes consequences are only for Democrats. They think these individuals should only receive a mild reprimand. Story 23. Investigate the use of Signal across the entire Trump administration. Expose if there is more widespread use. I believe they are using it to hide their conversations and keep things off the record. Story 24. It does not matter. Nothing will come of this. They are above the law and it will only get worse. They have stopped caring about what anyone thinks of them, and the sky is the limit. They will propose the idea of a third Trump term, and no one will take action against it. We are in a difficult situation. Story 25. If this isn't resolved with a few of these people getting fired, then we truly know that we Democrats don't have a leg to stand on. Conservatives can do anything they want while we complain. What are we? Are we going to rise up or take this lying down? Story 26. I'm guessing impeached and jailed. They are blinded by hypocritical rage and are trying to equate gross negligence and federal crimes with what sounds like a mistake, similar to a butt dial. Story 27. Conservatives on Reddit explain various topics. But her emails on Reddit explain various topics. Birthers on Reddit explain various topics. This website is very frustrating. Why does nobody ever ask these questions of the non-voters on Reddit or the leftists on Reddit or, in the case of Trump, white women on Reddit or the disenfranchised on Reddit? Everyone's fascination with the Trump voter is a big reason why we are in this situation. They believe they are edgy and important, even though they could never command an actual popular vote on anything because regular people dislike this behavior. Story 28. Lock her up if she violated a law. Take away her security clearance if she mishandled information. What I care about is continuing to give access to that information to people who are clearly not capable of protecting it and possibly deliberately sharing it with our enemies. Story 29. revocation of security clearance and removal of duties for the person who invited the journalist and the individual who disseminated the information, along with termination from their job. Story 30. Check out the conservative subreddit. Even they agree that this is a colossal mistake and needs to be handled appropriately. Story 31. People should lose their jobs. However, since Hillary got away with her actions, nothing will happen. Story 32. Well, nothing happened to Hillary. So maybe anyone arguing this should realize that, at the end of the day, people who are prominent never really face much in the way of consequences for their mistakes or bad actions, regardless of their political affiliation. Story 33. Why are people still trying to use logic to understand what is happening? It is like trying to win an argument with a younger sibling who is just messing with you. It is pointless and infuriating. Story 34. There will be no fallout for them, but you can bet that Trump and his associates will target every official and public figure who called for consequences. Story 35. What should be and what will be are unfortunately two very different things. Hypocrisy is the actual second requirement right after absolute blind loyalty. Story 36. I supported Hillary in 2016. Some lapses in judgment and process occur. In the name of consistency, I am probably less upset about this, though it also seems worse in some ways. It is worth noting that many users on Reddit did not support Hillary in 2016. In particular, the politics subreddit had multiple threads claiming she would go to jail. If you disagreed, you were downvoted. This serves as a reminder that when you create echo chambers by hiding posts that dissent, you create blind spots. Story 37. I believe that 10 years from now, we should still be discussing how the group that struggled with basic tasks were such clowns that they violated multiple laws and security protocols by discussing a military operation over an unsecured application. Story 38. If Trump fires whoever made the mistake, it will challenge my belief that he is the most evil president in history. Story 39. What should happen is a punishment that is equal to or greater than what would happen to a base-level employee. What will happen is more unnecessary presentations about security that only the base-level employee has to attend. Story 40. This all traces back to Hillary Clinton's private email servers. She is entirely to blame for this situation. Or Joe Biden. Maybe both Joe and Hunter. That laptop, after all. Or perhaps it was that tan suit. It's Barack Obama's fault. These tricky Democrats continue to undermine the Republicans. It's not fair, I tell you. Story 41. The Project 2025 playbooks and training videos evidently did not cover the basics of encrypted communications, let alone proper methods of information conveyance. Putin is laughing, as he should, at this failure. It's a circus. Story 42. A summer intern at a defense contractor was fired for posting a selfie in the parking lot, with the company sign in the background on their first day. That demonstrates a serious approach to security. Story 43. It should be scorched earth. But knowing that crowd, it won't be. Republicans routinely perform worse in broad daylight than what they accuse their opponents of doing in the shadows, and somehow it never backfires on them. Story 44. The punishment for allowing secure information out of the secure environment should be the same as the punishment for her allowing secure information out of the secure environment. Which was nothing, if I recall. Story 45. Loss of clearance pending investigation. The same action should have been taken regarding Hillary. It is unclear why individuals at a certain level in the government would be exempt from the most fundamental operational security processes. Story 46. You expect a reasonable response from people who indulge in their own hypocrisy. Story 47. Waltz should be terminated. The policy on using third-party applications needs to be rewritten. This matter is unrelated to the emails, despite the incident that occurred. Story 48. I was anxious about being in a WhatsApp group chat for a surprise birthday party. This U.S. administration is alarming, and the fact that Donald Trump claims he knows nothing about it suggests either incompetence or indifference. Regardless, it's a frightening time with large-scale conflicts in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Story 49. I haven't heard the specific script provided by right-wing media to justify the hypocrisy yet, but I am fascinated to see what absurd yet impressive mental gymnastics they come up with for this one. Story 50. The fact that they did not prosecute her set off a chain reaction where people do not take security clearances seriously. Trump and Biden think that because of past inaction, they are above the law. Now these individuals are doing the same thing. They do not realize that one day, real people will lose their lives because of their negligence. Story 51. Those people will continue to discuss this issue indefinitely. Thank you for asking. Please do not be like them and dwell on this topic for too long. Story 52. I was never a but her emails person, but this warrants some people being fired and imprisoned. However, as long as the Fox News party has no issue with any level of irresponsibility and criminality within their own party, all these individuals will escape accountability. Story 53. A rally around the rule of law. Yes, this includes impeaching Trump for his security leaks. Will? Nothing. Because Congress won't turn against their own. Story 54. 12-hour hearings for everyone on that thread. If you did nothing wrong, there will be no finding of wrongdoing after a lengthy question and answer session, just like Hillary. Story 55. You should have used the serious tag. Quite predictably, almost all of your responses come from people who are not part of the but her emails crowd. Story 56. Former Air National Guardsman sentenced to 15 years in prison for unlawfully disclosing classified information. Prison time is applicable for all involved in the conversation due to failure to follow sensitive compartmented information facility guidelines for electronic communication. Story 57. Wait, to you, unintentionally including a person in a group chat is the same as deleting 30,000 emails that were under subpoena? Story 58. We all realize that this only happened 2 months ago, but they have definitely been using the messaging application with the disappearing feature turned on for a lot of other things and have only now added a journalist, right? There's no way this is the first time. Story 59. Government and politics resemble a sports team. Your side is never wrong, and the other side is always wrong. Welcome to the tribalism of humanity. Story 60. Same as Hillary, I suppose. Investigated. Allowed to destroy evidence. In the end, nothing was found and there was no prosecution. Story 61. New Trump definition of unclassified. If you read it, it was unclassified, regardless of how you interpreted it. Story 62. Well, it's at least controlled unclassified information, so it shouldn't be shared over Signal. Story 63. I may be wearing a tinfoil hat with this one, but I believe this was done intentionally to highlight how Europe should contribute its fair share while the Saudis are being supported. I know these individuals can be misguided, but this situation feels like someone suggested there would be no consequences and that it would serve as a good distraction. Vance's comments are quite direct, filled with a pseudo-religious tone of "I'm praying" and expressing frustration about continuously supporting Europe. Story 64. My main takeaway is that the government does not have its own communication band for military communication for some reason. Story 65. Nothing. George Bush misled Congress and the United Nations to illegally invade Iraq, leading the United States into an 8-year war, and we re-elected him. Story 66. Adding the wrong person to the wrong chat should be treated like adding the wrong person to the wrong email thread. The reasons matter. Jail might be appropriate if it was done maliciously. Firing might be appropriate if it was done incompetently. The government should have its own chat application with vetted contacts and segregated permissions to prevent this from happening. Abusing power to have information technology completely disregard proper security practices by sending all emails, including those classified and affecting national security, to a personal offsite server for the sake of using a single device is likely something that should result in jail time. Story 67. I heard Joe from the gas station telling another person that they added someone to their group chat as a test to see if he would leak information. This means the reporter should be arrested for sharing confidential details. Story 68. Read the texts. Referring to these as attack plans is weak at best. This is merely an outline. I'm not suggesting it is acceptable. That aside, I don't believe this was leaked. This was fully intentional, and I almost suspect it was Pete himself. The suggestion that this might get leaked is odd. I think the purpose is to convey that this has minimal impact on the United States, which accounts for 3% of cargo, but it is significant for Europe, which accounts for 40%. This implies a request for repayment for assistance provided. There will be no consequences. This is exactly what they wanted. Story 69. Questions like this frustrate me. You're assuming their arguments are in good faith. They're not exactly hypocrites. Being a hypocrite requires knowing that they are applying standards differently, but they don't actually care. They're just making arguments to win, not to find truth. They use tactics until they get their way, much like children do. When you realize this, you understand that responding with a search for truth plays right into their trap. They want you to engage in this conversation because it wastes your time. If we want to be productive, we should have a completely different conversation. How do we help them stop acting like children and regain their integrity so they can become productive citizens again? Ultimately, we need them to choose that path. We can't do it for them. But how can we encourage this change? Story 70. The exact same as she received, nothing at all. Precedents matter, which is why I was so angry when she got away with it. Laws either apply to everyone or to no one, and we chose no one a long time ago. Story 71. The point of but her emails was not about the national security breach. It was a tool to criticize Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. This issue does not revolve around principles. It is about using weapons to attack a perceived enemy. The Republican Party is content being hypocritical because principles and norms are irrelevant when they are the ones violating them. Only the Democrats are held to standards, as they will face attacks on the slightest grounds. Story 72. Assuming the equivalence holds, and I haven't followed the story enough to be confident about that, but I can accept the premise, then the current officials should face the same consequences as Secretary Clinton, which is to say no consequences whatsoever. Is that the point you are making? Story 73. Hillary should be jailed for that. For the actual supporters who are too scared to say anything themselves. Story 74. The individual who added him should be charged with treason. Biden approved the application for the Central Intelligence Agency to use. Therefore, the person responsible for adding the journalist should be arrested. Story 75. The same situation that occurred with Hillary should be investigated with the predetermined outcome that there is no wrongdoing. Story 76. Sorry, why should Republicans play by different rules than Democrats? Since Hillary Clinton avoided consequences for her illegal email server, and Joe Biden had unsecured classified documents in his garage, these laws and rules obviously do not seem to be in effect anymore. I think that's clearly a problem, but there will not be a one-sided set of rules anymore. Congress can pass new laws with new penalties that apply equally to both parties, or classified information will not be treated specially anymore. If you do not like that now, you should have spoken up louder when Democrats were doing it because Republicans tried and learned that those rules do not matter, so now they do not exist. Story 77. Well, what should have been the fallout from the 2010 to 2012 killing of Central Intelligence Agency sources in China? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.